No one was at the gym. It's my new obsession, working out. I want an ass like a Russian twerker. That's my new obsession. Stripper ass at 44. We'll see if it happens.
So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Comedian. When I was 6 years old, I was watching Richard Pryor, and I was like, I want to be a black comedian. Everyone else wanted to be a ballerina, and I was like, I want to be a black comedian. So people think I'm a black man on the phone, so maybe I've reached my goal. I don't know.
What did your parents expect from you?
I did very well in school and very well in college, and then of course, like every, LA brat, I thought about acting. My dad's a screenwriter. My godmother was a casting director. I mean, they wanted me to do anything but act. They were like, be a potter, like anything. Be a drug dealer, just don't be an actress. So, I dabbled in that for a little while and realized that I couldn't really be anyone but myself. So, then I did fashion for 7 years, and then I did comedy for 5 years, and now I'm writing, which my dad is thrilled about, so.
What clique were you in high school?
The smart straight girl clique, not the cool girl clique. I didn't really get out of control till later. I went to Westlake, which is like an all-girls private uniform school where, Tori Spelling and Rain Pryor went, and I guess girls were doing blow off the dashboards of their new BMWs at, 7:30 in the morning, but I didn't know about any of that. I just had a group of straight girls, and we were all, really smart and sweet and close, and I was sort of lagging in terms of, I was smart, but I didn't, everyone else was drinking and having sex and stuff, and I was like a virgin and hadn't drank till I hit college, second year of college. And then look what happened. Now I'm catching up.
What was your reputation in high school?
I have no idea. Smart, funny. I had a lot of hair. I had curly hair. I had just a huge mane of hair. I didn't have really any enemies. It was pretty mellow.
What was like the happiest time of your childhood?
The happiest time of my childhood. Saturdays when I was 10 or 12, and my father used to take me bowling and to the sticker store, and I would dress up in my godmother's very expensive, designer clothing and smoke pretzels in her Jaguar.
Were there any signs in childhood that you're going to have these addiction problems?
I started to get pretty depressed around 15. And then that was pretty much it, but I was a pretty happy kid until then. I always, felt alone and different, and you hear that a lot from alcoholics and addicts. They always felt different. There was nothing wrong with me, but I always felt like something was innately wrong with me. Even like in fourth grade, I felt different and weird. And that seems to be a common thread. But, there's a lot of alcoholism and addiction and mental illness in my family, so, the genetics were always there.
Was there anything that you discovered in childhood that would take your pain away and take you to a happy place?
Well, I wasn't really in pain in childhood. I had a pretty happy childhood. My mom worked a lot, but my dad worked from home mostly when he wasn't like on a job at the studio, and he was very, very active in my life. So, I had my dolls and my, I was writing little screenplays. I wanted to do a version of the Wiz when I was like in 5th grade. I was casting all my classmates. But, the usual stuff, dirt bikes, swimming, kissing boys, usual stuff. I was pretty normal. I really went off the rails much later.
Yeah, I was just digging to see if there are any signs of what was to come in your childhood.
Not at all. Not really. Not really.
When did you first fall in love?
Does that, if it's unrequited, is it still being in love? I don't know. Or is that just obsession?
Sure, let's roll with it.
The person I lost my virginity to, who was like the playboy of college, I was madly in love with. Madly in love with. And it took me years and years to get over him. And then I fell in love again around 33 with a Marine who had been who was just back from Afghanistan. And we met in New York when I was visiting, and I was living in Paris. And we had like a long distance thing for about 6 months. And when that ended, I lost my mind.
What was your first experience of unrequited love? What was it like? Can you tell me anything about it?
You mean the Diverginator, or do you just mean in general?
Yeah, let's go specific. Let's go with the Diverginator. What was the experience of being in love like for you?
Painful. I never felt good enough. I didn't feel like I looked right. I was too funny. I was too aggressive. I was, he would just date a lot of girls who seemed not very bright, and that confused me. But that's like a whole issue that I have. Being raised by a father and being raised to be someone's emotional wife, you think that men want women who are like them, who are smart and funny and aggressive, but my father's never been with women like that. When I got out in the world, men didn't want that either. They were like, ooh, you're too much like me. And I'd be like, oh, a man with a pussy, what more could you want? How great is that? Like a real partner. But, men found me too aggressive and assertive and smart and funny and all that kind of stuff, which I never thought was bad stuff. It takes a very smart guy to really roll with that and not be intimidated. That's why when you're like, oh, are you sick of being objectified? I think as a smart woman, you're never sick of being objectified. Like my experience on Tinder, people love my photos, and then as soon as I open my big mouth, I alienate them within 20 minutes. It's amazing. I'm getting really good at it. It's getting faster and faster. It's incredible.
What is the archetype of the man that you fall in love with?
I think that's changing. I mean, being a divorcee, I think that's really changed. Honestly, I think I'm open. I think going through the painful divorce, I think I look for different things now than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, it was, some of the same things. I like guys that are, ruggedly handsome. I like people that are charismatic. I like people that are smart. I like people that are funny. I like people that are sexual. But, after getting out of a marriage, I think now I look a lot more for kindness and being open emotionally and being really affectionate and being able to say you're sorry and being accepted and all that kind of stuff. Typical wounds of the divorcee, I would think.
But if we were to forget about what you look for, what do you find yourself responding to, even perhaps if you don't want to respond to that?
Unavailable men, unfortunately. People who can banter, people who have a lot of sexuality, people who are confident. Physical attraction is important, but chemistry is more important. I think I see red flags a lot and I ignore them. It depends what you're talking about, too, because I struggle now with sex addiction, which is so much fun and very stigmatized for women. I think I went to a Sexual Compulsives Anonymous convention to report for the Fix, and it was me and 80 guys. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I went to a Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting, and it was me and 12 dudes. And I cried through the whole thing. So they're like, oh, good, a girl's here. And she crying through the whole meeting.
Are you more of a sex addict or a love addict?
I think I'm both. I just don't like Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous very much. So, honestly, I'm just going to, work on myself and avoid those meetings. I find those meetings triggering.
Which do you find easier to talk about, sex addiction or love addiction, or equal?
I think the sex addiction is more stigmatized, honestly. And, I was celibate for 7 years. I didn't lose my virginity until I was 19. And I was celibate from 27 to 33. So, I mean, I was never really promiscuous. So this is a kind of a new thing for me coming out of the separation that this developed, which is a new way to check out. It's a way, I got sober this time, and it was also in response to a pretty ugly divorce and, wanting to disprove whatever you thought your ex thought about you and that kind of stuff. So it's like, I need to start taking responsibility and stop blaming. The love addiction stuff is the most painful stuff, by far. For sure. I've never tried to kill myself over sex addiction. I have tried to kill myself over the ending of relationships.
Have you had an experience of love that's made you feel whole?
Can I cry on Skype? Not for any extended period of time, no. Where
did you go to college?
Emerson in Boston. I went to Santa Cruz for my first year, but as a Beverly Hills girl, I was like, there's too many hippies and lesbians here. And then, of course, I ended up in San Francisco a couple of years later, which is all hippies and lesbians. But and then I transferred to Emerson. I was there for 3 years in Boston.
And you majored in?
PR and advertising. Because my father said I wanted to do creative writing, and my father said, there's nothing they're going to teach you that you can't learn from writing or from me, and so you need to study something that's practical that you can get a job. And I've never worked in a PR firm in my life. Or advertising. Well, that's not true. I did do some PR for some fashion lines, but I've never worked in advertising.
What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of my courage in my writing, honestly. I know it shocks a lot of people, and I don't write to shock, but I write to own something that I'm ashamed of, and I write to say the thing that people are thinking that no one dares say. And a lot of people find my writing really brave, and I get a lot of emails from people saying, thank you for your honesty, and I really identified, and I thought I was the only one, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of being sober. It's difficult for me. I'm a chronic relapser. It's not easy for me.
What role has your looks played in your self-esteem?
I've always been really insecure, honestly. Everyone else, I've never thought I was great looking. I hate having my photo taken. Skype is brutal. It's amazing I ever get laid with the way I look on Skype. Jesus Christ. I must be fucking blind people. I've always been very, very insecure, and I actually went into treatment for something called body dysmorphic disorder, which is where you think something's wrong with your face and your looks, and it's all in your head. So as I've gotten older, I've gotten more confident, and I've gotten more accepting of the way I look. And, growing up in LA with a father who liked shiksas, I always felt too Jewish. I didn't want to be Jewish. I wanted to be, Goyim. So, but, I've made it into kind of a, pretenders, rock and roll chic, basis from the 80s look that seems to be working for me. Men find me very attractive. I seem to always be surprised by that. I don't really lead with that. I kind of play it down. I'm always in homeless, holy t-shirts, and I don't like feeling dressed up. It makes me feel like I'm on a platter. I feel too vulnerable. So I'm usually pretty dressed down.
How did you find your voice as a writer?
I've been writing since I was 13. But this time around, how did I find my voice? It's just who I am. I just tell the truth. I tell my perspective. And I think being a comic, also you hone your own voice. And I've always been very much opinionated and had my own voice, always, much to everyone's dismay. My father calls it uncensorable candor. So, I was married and I was dabbling in stand-up, and it was the former editor at the Fix who asked me to write a piece about sex and dating in AA. Because I had, had a very active social life before I got married. So I wrote a piece. It was very funny and honest, and we took off from there, and I've been writing for them for 3 years. For me, creativity is my only source of, now that I can't get high and stuff, it's like the one thing that makes me feel connected and in the flow and gives me self-esteem, and it's something that makes me happy. And it's something I need to do. Like, I have to write. Especially if I'm upset about something or, it's like a need. It's a compulsion.
What do you like about yourself aside from your writing?
I like my sense of humor. I like my self-deprecation. I like that I'm willing to look bad. A lot of the posts, you saw the recent post on Facebook that got like 52 likes was like, hey, I'm 44 and I've been in sober living for the past year. Yeah, my life is going according to plan. This is awesome. I'm willing to not look good. And, I think to me, that's very attractive when people are when they just own it and they're not all pretentious or, trying to manipulate the way you think about them. They're just like, this is who I am and I'm okay with that. I'm a survivor, I've been in a lot of rehabs and a lot of psych hospitals, and I've struggled a lot with depression and a lot of substance abuse, and I'm still fucking here. And I'm sober and I'm rebuilding my life and got a cool writing gig, and, I got arrested. I did 240 hours of community labor, sweeping the fucking streets with, at 7 a.m. That was humbling and brutal and completely life-changing. So, my experience has been that everything that I thought would never happen to me happened to me. It's like everyone's eligible. You don't think you'll get arrested under the right or wrong circumstances? That could happen to you. Oh, you don't think you're going to get cancer? Oh, you don't think you'll become an addict? Where'd you go?
I'm right here. I know this probably looks very bad, but I use my nervous energy during interviews to do these little exercises.
Okay. Yeah, I saw you with like a grip.
Yeah, I got it. My Digiflex, because I haven't worked manual labor in many, many years, so some parts of me get flabby. And so I have to keep them up, or, my wrists don't work right, or my elbows don't work right, or whatever. So, so that's what. What led you to stand-up comedy, and what kept you going in it?
I'd always wanted to do it. I just didn't have the balls to do it. And when I first got sober and I was in the rooms of AA, I'd be sharing, and the whole meeting would just die laughing. I don't even know what I was saying. I was just so broken, and so I didn't care, and so I just let it all hang out. And a couple comics came up to me after and were like, you should really consider stand-up. And when one person said it, I was like, whatever. And then when two professional stand-ups were like, you should consider stand-up, I was like, maybe there's something to this. So, I took a class and then I started, and then I was on a roll, and I was performing at the Improv and the Store, and I was on a sober tour, and, it was a lot of fun. But for me, I always got really, really nervous. I did very well. I had mostly good sets, but I was always terrified. And when I got separated and went back into rehab, I just felt too vulnerable to get back on stage, and I didn't miss it, and I kind of just been into the writing since. People are like, come back on stage and blah, blah, but I just don't really miss it. I think you have to want to do it. You have to be like, I got it. I need that applause. I need that laughter. Although I was in a meeting yesterday and I shared, and someone goes, you should try stand-up. I was like, oh, right. So I don't think the comic ever dies. I think that's always in you, much to my dismay.
So what happened to your lovely AmyDresner.com website?
I took it down. There was a lot of I'm not a comic anymore. I'm a recovering comic, and I'm gonna put that up as a writing website. Plus, being single, people will Google your stuff and see your stand-up, and they're like, yikes! And that's the end of that potential match.
I mean, but you're sunk in that respect anyway. I mean, how your website was your self-presentation. I mean, it wasn't as raw as your writing.
Oh, I know, but I was married during that whole time, so it was like, and there was a lot of stuff about my ex on there, and I just felt like it was time to close the door and move forward. I mean, a lot of my material was about my ex, so.
How much money would it take to get you back on stage doing stand-up?
Are you offering?
No, I got nothing. I'm just curious.
I don't know. I'd have to think about it, honestly. I mean, I get the bug sometimes. I've been coaching a friend of mine. I went to see her, perform at the Improv, and I got the bug a little bit. It's like being in a crack den again. You're like, oh, fuck. I miss it. I mean, I miss parts of it. I mean, there's a rush. When you kill it, it's a rush. People coming up to you after and going, oh my God, you are so hilarious. That was amazing. It's, it's a great feeling.
When did you first go to a 12-step meeting?
I was 26. I was in my first rehab, and they dragged me to a meeting, and I hated it. Hated it. I was also wearing a vintage Budweiser t-shirt, which they did not appreciate. And I had a meth problem, and so I didn't really, identify with, AA and drinking, and I was sharing at the podium, and someone was like, are you an alcoholic or what? Like, go to Narcotics Anonymous. And I just cried and cried. And I found it very culty and weird, and I didn't like the religious thing, and, I felt that way, for a long time. I still feel that way.
When did you begin to appreciate the 12-step thing? If ever.
I appreciate having people who understand what you've been through and don't shame you. I appreciate the camaraderie. I find a lot of the fundamentalist stuff a little, I'm not one to just spout stuff verboten that comes from the book or those cheesy sayings. I'm very much my own person, and I'm a bit of a rebel, and so I sort of, that stuff when someone, oh, well, I have a sponsor that has a sponsor, and they start spouting all those things. I just, But, it's worked for me. But I was sober for 7 years without AA.
Wait, you said it has worked for me. What has worked for you?
The 12-step program has worked for me. But I also was sober for 7 years without it before. I don't think it's the only way to get sober. My mom's been sober 30 years. She's not in the program. So I think, whatever works for you.
Is there any particular 12-step group or variation that you find most appealing?
Not really. I got sober in AA. I've gone to a few Narcotics Anonymous meetings. They scared me. I hate SLAWs, I don't really, although I probably need it. I don't like SAA. So I've gotten sober in AA, and everyone's cross-addicted now. When I got sober 20 years ago for the first time, no one would let you talk about drugs, and now everyone is cross-addicted. Plus, I had my experience where I was sober off drugs for 7 years, and then I picked up alcohol, and it was a nightmare. I was like, oh, it's all the same shit. Well, I can be addicted to anything. I'm a super addictive person. Exercise and sleep and meditation and nicotine and sex. It doesn't matter. If I can check out with it or it can get me high, I'm behind it. That's what I've learned about myself.
What do you think about God?
I struggle with that. I believe in a kind of a higher power kind of thing in the universe, but I don't call it God. Except when I'm overdosing on the bathroom floor. Then it's like, help me, God. I don't really think about it that much. I don't think that that's an integral part to getting sober. I think at its base, 12 steps is cognitive behavioral therapy. And I think that if you do the work, you can stay sober. And I also think that the key is to accept whatever's going on and go with the flow instead of fighting everything. Going, oh, this is what's happening now, and being in acceptance of it. Just rolling with it. That's the key. And if it makes you feel better that everything's working out the way it's supposed to, or, that there's a plan, then cool, My experience has been that it's your attitude. Like when I got arrested and had to do community labor, I made a conscious decision. I was like, this can either be fun and funny and life-changing, or it can suck. And I was like, it all depends on my attitude. And I was like, I'm going to make this as fun as I can. And I'm going to let it change me. And it gave me a work ethic, and it shifted everything. I mean, when you come home from sweeping, the streets of Hollywood for 8 hours straight in the blazing sun with, 40 Mexican guys, and you're the only white girl in a truck, and they're talking about, hand jobs and burritos all day. You know what I mean? Like, you're so tired. I'd never been that tired. It was like working man stuff. I was like, oh my God, I need a blowjob and a sandwich in silence. Like, I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about Facebook or the way I looked, or I'd fall asleep by 6:30. I mean, I'd take a shower and I would eat and I would fall asleep. And I'd never been that tired. And it shifted the way I thought about everything, and gave me a new appreciation for, people who do manual labor.
What role has Facebook played in your life?
I mean, I'm overly honest on Facebook. I mean, I think starting off as a comic, you do stuff that's funny. And again, I don't think the comic ever dies, unfortunately. If you know someone who can kill the comic within me, let me know. But I'm always, out for a laugh. It doesn't matter. So, and I've gotten a lot of support when I've gone through some really difficult things. I've gotten a lot of support from people on Facebook. I've gotten a lot of good support about my writing, and people were loving the community service stuff. I mean, they were bummed when I finished because they thought that was hilarious. Or all my dating escapades. They were like, oh my God, that's the funniest shit ever. So, and every time I hit a sober, landmark, I mean, people are all over it. 100-something people are like, oh my God, it's amazing, keep going. And, I get a lot of positive feedback. People find my misery very amusing. So.
What do you think about Judaism?
Well, my father went through a period where he was like a revisionist Jew, revivalist Jew, something like that.
Reconstructionist?
No, one of those words, but he got very into that when my drug problem got really bad. He needed something to make sense of everything. I'm not really into organized religion. I mean, I identify as Jewish, and people always ask me whether it's the way I talk or the way I look. People ask, are you Jewish? I'm like, oh, fuck, I can't get rid of it. But, I identify with other Jews in terms of, being neurotic and self-hating and all that stuff. But I'm not really big on organized religion. I just, but if someone says that they're Christian, I'm out. Like when, there's people someone posts like a psalm or something or a weird Jesus quote on Facebook, like I block them immediately. That shit creeps me out.
Could you develop on that? Why does that creep you out? Why does Christianity?
I find it really creepy. I find those people to be very, very judgmental, and I think that everyone should find their own way with spirituality, and whatever works for you is cool, honestly. So, I went to Jewish school for a couple of years, then I went to Catholic school for a couple of years, and, I'm not into any kind of divisionist stuff, so whatever works for you, but I just don't want it pushed on me. That's all.
What would you say are the major differences between dating Jews and dating non-Jews?
I haven't dated very many Jews. Honestly. My ex-husband was not Jewish, and I actually don't usually date Jews. I don't know why. They don't really come to me, and I'm just not really there, you know. Sometimes half Jews, like myself, you know.
Are you not attracted to Jews? Do you find yourself just...
Depends how Jewy they are, honestly. I mean, you know, my father is extremely Jewish looking and acting, and I think that I am attracted to people who, you know, have the wit of my father and the intellect, but are, you know, it feels incestuous to date super Jewish people. Like, watching Curb Your Enthusiasm makes me so fucking anxious. Like, it's just too close to my life and me and people I know. It's like, I don't find it funny. It really gives me a panic attack. I'm open to whatever. I mean, whatever I've been doing hasn't been working, so let's change up the pattern a little bit. You know, I'm not really about that as well. It doesn't matter to me.
So your mother is not Jewish?
No.
So if there was like a Holocaust, you think you could pass as a non-Jew?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Did you see Schindler's List? My last name is the first name on that. No, people seem to, you know, all I hear about is how much I look like Barbra Streisand, much to my dismay. So, no, I don't think I could pass as a non-Jew.
What do you think the rest of your life is going to look like?
God, I have no idea. I choose not to think of it. How I'd like it to look or how I think it's going to look?
Both. Either.
I'd like to get married again. I'd like to write a book. I'd like to really build my name as a writer. I'd like to travel more. That's it. How it's really going to work out, I have no idea. I mean, I'm just trying to take it a day at a time and just do what's in front of me. I mean, it's been a pretty rough couple of years, but I got through it and I had a big shift. And so I just got a new sponsor who is pretty brutal. So I'm thinking that that's going to be a new transformation, looking at all my stuff again. I mean, that's the thing. I've been in therapy for years and years and years and years. And honestly, doing a 4-step changed me more than 20 years of psychotherapy. Because just, you can talk about things forever and ever and ever and just keep blaming people and feeling sorry for yourself. And for me, what works better is acting myself into right action, as difficult as that is, and taking responsibility. Because when you take responsibility for what's happening, if you change, you can change what happens to you. And you're not a victim anymore. And you can change the way you react, like I said, which I think is everything. That's all you have control over, is the way you react to whatever happens to you.
Can you share any of your major resentments?
Not at this time. I'd prefer not to.
Yeah. What was I'm just going to run a couple of the 12 steps by you and just let you free associate if you care to. So the first one was, we admitted we were powerless over, you know, alcohol, sex, drugs, whatever, and that our lives had become unmanageable. What was that like for you, encountering that step?
Easy. I mean, my drug use was always unmanageable. From the time I picked up, I was blacking out. From the time I picked up drugs, it was on, you know. I mean, I like to get loaded. And I like to, you know, as close to death as I can get. Like, as fucked up as I can get without dying, that's where I want to be. And so, whenever I've tried to control my using or drinking, I've been miserable. So I really rarely tried to control it, and it was very, very out of control. And I would end up, you know, in the ER all the time, and, you know, in psych hospitals. I've been in 7 rehabs. So, I mean, my unmanageability around that stuff, I never have known anything else around it, honestly. That was very easy for me.
Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
That's difficult, that's been difficult for me. When people go, oh, well, God did for me what I couldn't do for myself, I'm like, why would people remove your drinking and not remove someone else's cancer or someone else's mental illness or whatever? I mean, I think that you change as a result of putting down your poor coping mechanisms and picking up new tools and getting out of yourself. I mean, being other-oriented, service, and all of that kind of stuff. And not buying into your thinking. I mean, that's the key, is not buying into your thinking anymore. So, I mean, people still think I'm crazy. I'm a lot less crazy than I used to be. I don't know how that's come about, but I don't really care. Who cares? I'm less crazy than I used to be. I'm happy about it.
Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him.
That's very difficult for me. I mean, when I can do that, I feel much better and I'm much more at peace and I can roll with it and I have a lot less fear. But it's hard. It's hard. But I've been taken care of. Things have worked out for me. So I like to think that there's a plan or that, everything's happening the way it's supposed to. But it's not always for your comfort. It's just for your benefit. It's for your growth. So it doesn't always feel good. But I like what I want, and, whatever I've let go of has claw marks on it. I love that saying, even though I hate sayings, but, it's hard for me to go, oh, well, if it's meant for me, it'll happen, and to, whether it's work or men or whatever, it's like to just let it go and just think, oh, well, something better, someone's rejection is God's protection. It's like, oh, that stuff's difficult. It's really difficult.
So we talked about step 4, making a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. You said that was very powerful. Step 5,
yeah.
We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs.
I've always been very open with my sponsors. I don't have a lot of shame about it. I've never been shamed by a sponsor. That wasn't really a problem for me, honestly. I'm so open with everything that I do that's fucked up on Facebook. Why would I hide it from a sponsor? Like, everyone knows everything already. And that's a weird defense mechanism that I have, that if I'm ashamed of something, then I put it out there and I own it. And so then no one can go, well, you blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I already said that. Yeah, I said I had a sex addiction problem. Yeah, I said I got arrested. Yeah, I said I was a drug addict. I mean, no one has anything on you because you've owned it all. So that was never a problem for me.
Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
Yeah, that's weird. Again, I find that very creepy. Very creepy and unrealistic and bizarre. I think you've got to work to have a shift and to let those things go. I don't think God just takes things out and people go, oh, well, he took it for the day. He doesn't take it forever. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I don't buy into that. I mean, I have had a shift in this sobriety, I'm not going to lie, but I don't think it came so much from 12-step as it came from doing community labor. Honestly, that's what's really shifted me.
Do you find that 99% of people are less intelligent than you are?
Yes. I mean, there are definitely people who are way, and I used to be smarter. Before I did all the drugs and had 20 grand mal seizures, I was much, much smarter. Now I'm much stupider, but I'm more happy. So I think stupidity equals happiness. I think the smarter you are, the more miserable you are because you feel more alone and you analyze things. And so, the stupider you are, the happier you are. So I'm fine with whatever brain damage I've induced from seizures and drugs. I feel a little happier than I did when I was younger and smarter.
Step 7, humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings.
Didn't we just do that?
No, that was 6. We became entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
Right. Again, I think that if you're ready to let something go, you're more willing to make a change and let it go. I don't think that the universe comes in and takes it out. I think that my experience of life has been that you get wake-up calls, like, you need to deal with this. And if you dodge it, the wake-up calls get louder and more violent until you face whatever it is that you've been running from and avoiding. That's my experience. So call that what you will. I mean, I dodged stuff for a long time, and everything that I had to face in the last couple of years was stuff I'd been dodging my whole life. Self-sufficiency, all of that stuff. I wanted to be taken care of. I wanted to stay a child. I told my dad that in group therapy when I was at Promises. I said, I don't want to grow up. He thought, oh, good. I'm paying $30,000 to hear my 33-year-old daughter say that. Awesome. So, I went from being taken care of by my father to being taken care of by my husband, and then I got dropped on my ass and had to learn how to take care of myself. And what I've learned is that I can. And that's been very empowering. I'm not too broken. I'm not too crazy. I have skills. Even if my skills are talking about being broken and crazy.
Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all.
Yeah, that's difficult, but I've done it.
Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible. Step where to do so would injure them or others.
Again, I think the key is that you're trying to clean your side of the street and forgive yourself. That's something I struggle with, is forgiveness. I'm not proud of the way I've behaved in past relationships or whatever, and I struggle with forgiving them and forgiving myself. And, that's why I picked this new sponsor, because he's very into forgiveness, and I think that's the key to moving forward. He said, scars don't tell you, where you're going. They tell you where you've been. And I don't want to be identified. I don't want my past history to influence my future. I want to be able to let stuff go. I don't want to have it, color the way that I interact with people. I want to come from a pure, open place, even if I've been hurt. So.
How do you balance your desire to be honest on the one hand and to pursue your self-interest on the other?
What self-interest?
Well, I assume you want a writing career. I assume that's really important to you, and so perhaps there are taboos that one shouldn't touch if one wants to pursue a career in being published.
I mean, my heroes in writing are people like Hunter S. Thompson and Bukowski and Jerry Stahl and, those kind of people. And I understand that people like to watch a car wreck and read about a car wreck and feel better about themselves, but what I hope to do with my writing is to give people really an honest view of addiction and recovery and what it's like to be, someone in my shoes with my issues, and so to help educate people. So I think if they understand it more from the inside with some humor, then that will reduce stigma, and that's what I really want to do. So I think that if I get published, I had a short story published recently in True Tales of Lust and Love, and it's very in your face and sexual and, and funny, and people, my father didn't read it, but, other people seem to like it. Honestly, I don't think you can be concerned as a writer with how people are going to receive your material. I don't think that's pure artistry. I think you've got to write what you need to write, and the right people will be attracted to it. And I think I don't like to read people who are creating artifice. I like people who rip their heart out and throw it on the page. I think that takes real courage, and that's where you identify, in those dark recesses where you're like, oh fuck, I'm not the only one who thought that or did that. So.
What's your approach to writing about race?
I hadn't even thought about it. I don't usually do that. I'm not really political, and it's not even something that crosses my mind, honestly. I mean, you know, I get assigned stories from the Fix to report on events and things like that, but they want my sassy, in your face, kind of inappropriate attitude. So, you know, I mean, my stuff is self-indulgent. I'm not going to lie. It can be a little self-indulgent and narcissistic, and it's all about me and my feelings and my experiences and my opinion, and, you know, not so much the reporting pieces. And I did write a piece recently for another magazine, which was about women being sober and dating in versus out of the rooms. I interviewed a lot of women, and I put together a piece because they were like, hey, man, we don't want super edgy. And I was like, all right. So I kind of put my claws away.
What happens to you, if anything, the more men that you go to bed with?
Oof. You have good experiences, you have bad experiences, you know what you like better, you know what doesn't work for you. I think that for that there's a certain amount of validation I'm looking for, which I get, but also, you know, it confuses me because men can, even with a one-night stand, they can be incredibly loving and affectionate and hold you and hold your hand and pillow talk, and then you just like never hear from them again. And to me, that's very, very confusing. So as much as I like to think like I'm a guy in a woman's body, like if you show me any tenderness, I'm fucked. I'm like hooked on you, you know? So, I don't feel shame about it, but it really depends, you know? It depends on what the situation is. It depends if it's someone I've been sleeping with for a while that I'm comfortable with and we have a friendship and it is what it is, you know? Sometimes it feels like a business deal. You know, you can write it off. So, it is what it is. So, you know, I was very inhibited sexually for a really long time. And so I feel free now. And I can own it, and it took me a long time to get there. So I don't feel ashamed about my experimentation phase, and I don't agree with slut shaming. And I think that women can be as sexual as men, and you know, sometimes we just want to get down, and we don't necessarily want a relationship with that person, and you just want to, you know, you want the sensation or to check out or have a connection with someone, and I don't see what's wrong with that. I think there's still that double standard about it.
Do you think there's any kind of spiritual or psychic tie that happens once you have sex with somebody?
God, I never thought about that, but now that you've said that, I'm horrified at that thought. I hadn't even thought about that, honestly. But now I probably won't ever sleep with anyone again unless I want to marry them, thanks to that comment.
What are your biggest questions about men? I don't know what they want. It's confusing to me, and I feel like, although my marriage didn't work out, I mean, he really, you know, at one point he really loved me and loved that I was smart and kind of wild and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of men seem to think I can be fun, but they don't necessarily want a relationship with me. And also, I have a history now. I put out that I, you know, struggle with sex addiction, and I also, you know, have written about my bipolarity and all that kind of stuff. So the people that are attracted to me are either people that want to save me, or people who think I'm just some wild freak, or other people who have struggled with the same stuff, you know. I mean, I've had bad experiences where people are like, ooh, you were an IV drug user? Like, yee. It's like, that was 10 years ago. I've been tested and married and divorced since then. Like, calm down. So, you know, men confuse me. Someone thought I was a black man on the phone the other day. So, you know, I don't know. I've tried for a long time to change myself into what I thought men wanted, and I just didn't feel authentic.
And I feel like the right guy is going to be like, oh my God, she's this and she's out there, but she's wild, but she's amazing and smart and she's lived a life and she's brave and, you know, I love her. I want someone who can accept me the way I am. I don't want to put on some front, you know. I want someone who can accept the way that I am. But I don't know. I reveal too much too early, and people can get freaked out. I think that they don't have an investment then. They don't know the entirety of me. So, you know, on paper, I don't look very good.
You said that you, a few years ago, tried to make yourself into what you thought men wanted. Can you tell me some details about that?
I mean, I think that was years and years ago. Softer and more feminine and not as aggressive and not as assertive and not as intellectual and not, you know, being the funny one and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what I've noticed for myself, you know, I live with someone who just had a baby. And no one thought I would be good with the baby because I pretend I'm such a hard ass. But anyone who knows me knows I'm very, very sensitive and that's just armor to protect me because I've been hurt. But I'm amazing with this 3-month-old baby, and the baby loves me. And what opens up for me with the baby is a real nurturing, maternal, pure, loving, vulnerable side of myself that I don't see very often. And I'm trying to connect with that more, honestly. And a lot, you know, if a man is very sort of strong and sees through my bullshit, I usually go more into my feminine energy, which I like to be in that feminine energy. Look, I have my hair in a bun today for you. Come on. Trying to look all pretty and prissy. If a man is like, you know, you're so full of shit and just shut the fuck up and blah, blah, I tend to, you know, revert into my more feminine energy and be more receptive and softer, which I like, which is the biggest turn on for me. I don't like to be the dominant one. So.
Have you dated any Asian guys or black guys or Latino guys, and is there anything different about them than dating white guys?
I dated a cop. This was years and years ago. Well, date is a loose word for it. It's just putting it kindly. But he was half Japanese and half German, and he was a pro skateboarder who became a policeman. And he was just as insane as me. He would pour Everclear on himself and light himself on fire at punk concerts. I mean, he was a total alcoholic. And we had fun. It was fun. He couldn't continue to date me because I was a cocaine addict at the time. So despite the fact that he was an alcoholic, I was doing something that was illegal. So that was the end of that. I have dated one black man who was a performer, and I will keep his anonymity because he's pretty well known. But never slept with him. Latino, no. I'm not open to it. I mean, again, I think you click with who you click with, you know. I like exotic people, though. I like people that are different looking.
Would you rather date a felon or a Republican?
Oh, a felon for sure.
Why?
I don't agree with Republican beliefs, you know. And I still like bad boys. I mean, I was on a tour with a felon. He was a comic, and his name was Felon O'Reilly, and he actually had been arrested 73 times and incarcerated 17 times, and, you know, I don't know that institutionalization ever goes away. I mean, he would always still wear those white socks and those stupid sweatpants and those wife beaters. I mean, he always had that in him. But, you know, I was arrested on a felony. It got dropped to a misdemeanor. So I don't, you know, glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Have you had a relationship with a Republican?
No. Why, are you a Republican? Are you hitting on me?
I'll keep myself out of it. I'll have to tell you after the interview, but I don't want it to smudge.
I'm open. I'm open to, you know, I'm not super political, so that stuff doesn't really bother me. I don't really, you know, I don't get into political debates with people I'm dating. I'm not that up on that stuff. I'm too self-involved and too into, Tinder and nicotine and vaping and whatever, writing and, Sam Harris. I'm big on Sam Harris lately. Do you know who he is?
Yes, I've met him.
Yeah. You've met him?
Yeah.
I find that quite fascinating. I was watching his thing at Festival of Dangerous Ideas, the whole illusion of free will, which got me off the hook for a lot of my shit. I was very happy.
So would you agree that we do not have free will?
I do agree with the fact that if you were in the exact same situation with the same upbringing and the same biochemistry, you would probably do the same thing as that person did. I mean, I also agree with you can't choose a thought that you don't have. So, I mean, whether I have free will or not, does it really matter? I still have to take responsibility for my actions, whether they were reactionary or from my, when I was high or from if I was manic. It doesn't really matter. They're still my responsibility. So.
What do you think affects people more, nature or nurture?
I would say nature. I've seen a lot of people overcome abusive childhoods and that kind of stuff. I think as someone who's struggled with a lot of biochemistry stuff, in my brain, to me, my alcoholism is completely biochemical, and so is my mood disorder. So, I feel like definitely nature. And I think science will catch up with us, and people will reduce the stigma, and they'll be like, oh, it's just like diabetes. It's just like cancer. Sorry we judged you and thought it was a moral issue.
I assume that when you do community service, you met a lot of type of people that you'd otherwise not mixed with?
Absolutely.
How do you think people with below average intelligence are going to fare in our increasingly complicated world?
God, I don't know. I think drive has a lot to do with it and commitment. I mean, I'm, considered pretty smart, and I haven't done that well for myself. So, it was interesting to be with people. I was one of the few people who had an assault charge. Most people were there for drunk driving. So it was, even in that situation, it was very humbling. They're like, oh, how much time do you have? I'm like, 240 hours. They're like, whoa, did you rob a bank? Like, what the fuck, And it was embarrassing to be like, oh, I'm here for assault. They were like, okay, it was a little shaming. I mean, I tried to make a joke. Some people are like, oh, did you deserve it? That kind of stuff. But that was never something I wanted on my resume, was criminal, being a criminal.
What's it like being interviewed?
It depends on the interviewer, honestly. If the person knows your work and is smart and funny and respects you, I feel more comfortable. When it's about me, there's no right or wrong answer. A friend of mine said, you don't have to worry about putting your foot in your mouth, Amy, because you are that. I thought, oh, right. Well, that's a relief. Of course, I hear myself say something and I think, oh, fuck, people are going to judge that or people are going to think this. And I never read reviews. I don't read any comments on any of my articles because, my father said early on, he said, don't ever read the reviews because half the time you should think you should win a Nobel Prize and the other half the time you think you should throw yourself out a window. So, I don't want to pander and write what I think people want to hear from me, and I don't want to shy away from my truth either. So to keep that channel pure and to just speak my truth, I don't read comments. I'm sensitive. I'm sure I'd be upset. Especially when you write about sex, People get weirded out.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should ask you?
I don't think so. I mean, you've read all my stuff, right?
Yes.
He says, like, oh. I don't think so. Just, I can't think of anything. We covered it. I mean, you were very into the steps. I didn't realize we were going to be so 12-step heavy. Would have brought my big book with me. I'm willing to do anything that helps me change, you know. I mean, for me, meditation really changed me. I wish I would do it more, but that really helped me have a shift, because it helped me to see my thoughts as something that I could choose to engage in or not engage in. And before, whether it's being someone who's a depressive or someone who's an addict, my thoughts would come and they would take me on an emotional ride, and I had no choice. And with meditation, I learned, I was like, oh, that's an interesting, shitty thought. I'm going to let that roll and not, you know, you have so many thoughts and you get to choose which ones you want to jump on and go on that ride, or if not. So I'd always thought that sort of distracting myself was not being true to whatever I was feeling, but now I believe that, you know, choosing not to engage or to distract yourself is actually a healthier way. You don't need to go down that rabbit hole all the time with whatever, you know, feeling is coming up or whatever thought.
How often do you meditate?
Well, I don't anymore because it was working too well, so I've stopped. I was feeling too good. I was feeling way too good. So I was like, oh my God, how am I going to write all my depressing shit if I feel this good? So, you know, I need to get back into the habit. I'm obsessed with the gym right now. This is my new obsession. 40 years of sitting on my ass, and now I'm like, I gotta get in shape! My ex-husband once said I was like a Kobe beef. I had just been massaged and fed beer my whole life. So, trying to put a little muscle on.